My boyfriend Jack and I meet up every weekend to hang out, go on dates and spend quality time with each other. He's 6'5", so he's much taller than the average guy. On the weekend, we decided to go on a hike in the redwoods of Northern California. We were next to the Redwoods State Park, but not inside it. There were some great, easy trails about 8 miles outside of the entrance, and we decided to take one that was almost entirely under the canopy of the trees and more or less flat, since I have an undiagnosed heart condition that makes too much cardio dangerous for me. By the time we make it to the trail, it's a lot later than we originally planned. The sun was already setting. We decided to go through the canopy entrance so we would come out into the clearing at the end. It wasn't a popular time for hikes, but we wanted to adventure. The only people we saw were those leaving the trail. It slowly got darker, which made the view gorgeous. The forest was tranquil and serene, which made us incredibly relaxed. As we wound through the trail, talking and holding hands, we didn't realize how dark it had gotten until it was true dusk, right before nightfall. Once we noticed it was nearly 8 PM, we broke into a clearing and started looking for the next trailhead so we could get home. The signs got a little confusing and some were missing markers. At this point, we found a gravel path, which made me ecstatic since I realized I forgot my bug spray and we were in tick country. Ticks were about to become the least of our worries. We went into a tunnel of trees and it was pitch black underneath. It looked like a cave. Since we hadn't planned on this turning into a night hike, neither of us had flashlights, but my phone had a full battery and a flashlight option, so I flicked it on and we continued, still talking and laughing. I'm a bit paranoid though, so I was paying a lot of attention to our surroundings. I heard a grunt and some deep breaths, so I turned to Jack and asked, "Babe, what is that? There is something there." He looked in the direction that I nodded at, and then rather suddenly, a man dressed in all black appeared. Since my boyfriend could see him, he relaxed and said hello to the man. When Jack spoke to him, he paused, looked at us sideways and started muttering. After we walked past him, the man stopped, stared at us and went into the dense growth to our side. I went on high alert at this point, though I said nothing since I'm a bit paranoid. As we kept walking, we hit the end of this particular trail, which was marked with gates and a wooden walk around. Leaning against the wooden corral that we would have to walk through to exit the trail was a blonde woman, also dressed in all black. Cheerfully, she shouted, "Hello!" and all my alarm bells were raised. She looked to be in her 40s, but a hard 40s combined with meth. She asked if we would step off the trail, pointed to a tree about 35 feet away and still easily in sight of the path, and told us that she had left her stuff underneath it and it was too dark for her to see. I immediately connected her with the man we passed, who looked to be the same age, had the same clothing, and also had that meth look. My boyfriend, who was raised to be very polite and helpful, immediately agreed, so we started to head up. She kept us at just the right distance that she could hear everything we said to each other, and if we fell back even a little bit, so would she. I quietly told Jack that I did not want to be doing this, and something was wrong. He said there were 2 of us, and 1 of her, so we could take her if anything went wrong. I replied that we didn't know how many people were in the woods, or if they had weapons, but instead of making him turn around, I went on with him. Alarm bells blaring in my head, I start trying to make a conversation with the woman. Since I used to act frequently, I recognize a scripted conversation when I hear it, and this is exactly how she sounded. Very scripted. My suspicions were confirmed, as talking to her was eerily like talking to a robot at a theme park. She would pause to let me talk, and once I was finished, she continued with her conversation like nothing had happened. This entire time, her main conversation piece was trying to get my cell phone from me. She kept saying that she needed the light. Can I please give her the light? It won't be for long. She just needed some light. This was obviously a cell phone, not a flashlight, and I was completely unwilling to give it to her. This was the point Jack realized this situation was suspicious. He turned on his flashlight too, to let people know that there were two of us, and we both had cell phones. We got to the tree that she had said she left her stuff under, and after barely looking, she said it wasn't there. She tried to lead us to a tree around a bend and completely out of sight of the trail, saying she vaguely remembered her friend moving her stuff that way. I stiffened and whispered to Jack, "There are people behind us on the trail. There are people in the bushes, Jack." He thought I meant the cyclists who were racing down the trail and went back to focusing on the woman. However, those cyclists seemed to startle her as she suddenly found her stuff, which was not the blanket and backpack that she said it was. They were large black trash bags, and she wanted us to come all the way here and help her get them. I called out now that she found it, that we were going to leave, and dragged my boyfriend back on the trail. I looked back and saw her face twist in anger, and watched as she put her bags back under the same tree. This is when I realized how much trouble we were in, and when we got to the trail, there were two tall men dressed in black, one around 6'1" and the other around 5'9", and one of them was the man that we had passed earlier. The other was facing the end of the trail, keeping watch. I told Jack that these were the people that I saw in the bushes, and he freaked out. We started walking away from the men, and as we passed them, the one man that we met before went back off the trail and disappeared. The other stared at us with dead eyes and didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even close his eyes when we shined our lights in his face. After we passed, he turned on his flashlight and started flashing it, in a pattern. We quickly left the trail and passed the bus depot, where the city buses are housed at night. It was brightly lit, a little loud, and I pulled Jack in since I saw someone out of the corner of my eyes. One of the guys working on the bus told us that there were no buses running on this street, and that we had two options. We could turn down one street and walk all the way to the metro centre, or we would cut through a shopping centre down the road, cross a footbridge, and it would take us to a busy street where there are many bus stops with buses running. We thanked him, and after making sure that we weren't being followed, we left. Once we saw the road that would lead us to the transit centre, we immediately decided on the shopping centre route, as the road was dark and deserted. Jack and I debated whether we should call the non-emergency police line. The situation was suspicious, and I was certain the woman was setting up the trap again for somebody else. We finally decided to call them, and I'm so glad we did. 5 minutes into the phone call with the officer, Jack tugged on my arm and urgently whispered in my ear, "Alex, the man is behind us again. He's following us." I looked behind me and there he was, and he's staring at us, coldly. The only way he could have gotten past us without me noticing was to cut through the forest and go around the bus depot. I let the lady on the line know what was going on, freaking out. She panicked at this information and began desperately trying to find out where we were, but we weren't near any signs, and we sped up to try and find one. He sped up too. Then I mentioned police to her, though I don't remember why. He stopped and then darted away, and then I noticed where he went to hide. Through the shopping centre, by the bridge. He'd been close enough to us to hear the bus worker giving us directions, and he went there to wait. I let the lady on the line know this, and she asked if we wanted an officer to meet us. We said no, as we didn't want to wait for someone to get here, so Jack and I kept walking, checking over our shoulders frequently. When we finally got to a busy, well-lit street, the lady on the line let us go, after thanking us profusely for calling. The whole walk to the bus was filled with anxiety and paranoia. This was when I mentioned to my boyfriend Jack that I had gotten a police notification that at least one person, though I think there were two, went missing off a trail in the area. I suddenly knew why the lady on the line wanted all my info, and why she was so grateful that we had called, and I realized how bad of a situation we had been in. These people were well planned and very angry that we left. We were followed off the trail and only left alone when they realized we were talking to the police. We got lucky that those cyclists rode by, as that spooked them enough to let us get away in the first place. I was grateful that we didn't let them know that we knew what was going on while still on the trail. I don't think they would have let us leave if they realized we knew. I think they had weapons, as their hands didn't leave their pockets, and I know they didn't need a light, since one of the men had a very bright flashlight. My boyfriend and I could have disappeared, and no one would have known until it was too late. To give a little background, I'm a film student in college right now, and me and my buddies are always trying to find new locations to film our movies at. I make horror films, so all the places I'm looking for and exploring are abandoned. And tonight, me and my group of friends, there were 10 of us in total, decided to check out this abandoned hospital down the street from our school. We had been there before and said it was a great spot for filming, and I should check it out. Tonight was that night. So when we get there, I have my Nikon DSLR out with a handheld LED light attached to the top of the camera to scout the place when we got inside. I didn't film any of the encounter because I usually only film the inside of these places, but I had my camera and light out to shine the way through. I was leading the way down this narrow path that led to these walls that we had to climb to get on the roof of the place, where we would then access one of the rooms to get inside the building. Because I was carrying the camera and a bag, I was trying to look for another way up. I walk a little further down this narrow path and I start noticing a lot of clothes and random shoes and cardboard boxes laying around the area. There was even an empty sleeping bag. And that's when I knew that we probably weren't alone and were likely going to run into someone if we made the wrong move. And boy, did we ever. One of my friends walking behind me down this path notices a door to my right. It's closed, and my guess was that it was locked and not worth trying. But he already had his hand on the door handle and starts tugging. I look over, and it barely cracks open, but something is holding it from the inside. I shine my LED on the inside, and I see a shirt tied to the inside door handle to another part of the room, acting as a lock. But my friend, being the way he is, tugs again and rips that shirt right off, and the door swings open. Inside, there is someone sleeping on some sort of a table or a couch. Alongside him was a group of terrifying looking people sitting by a light inside that room, and they all stop and stare at us. In the short glimpse that I got, my friend yells, "Oh shit, get the fuck out of here," and slams the door and just bolts past me. I was standing there a little shaken, almost feeling like I should apologize, but I just follow him instead. My other 8 friends are already on the roof at this point and ask what's going on, and we just run for our lives out of the area. I hear the door in the path swing open again, but I couldn't look back. From there, me and my friend quickly run over back to a higher part of the area, away from any entrance leading to the hospital. There is a small gap that you could jump across to get to one of the roofs of the buildings that my other friends were on. About 4 of them follow us and jump across, ready to get out of there. But the others stay on the roof and watch us, stuck like statues. I look at them, confused at what they're staring at, and I begin to hear this metal dragging on the concrete. I turn around, and there is a crazy looking man, maybe mid-20s, dragging a baseball bat with nails all along the end, walking towards us as he drags the bat along the concrete. He was acting just like Negan from The Walking Dead. My heart sinks. At this point, I turn off my light, and all that's shining is the moonlight. I keep my hand on my pocket knife, desperately trying to think of anything to do if he starts swinging. But I knew there was no way I would come out alive if I tried anything. Plus, I gotta take care of my camera. So he walks closer to us, and the first thing he says is,
"You're gonna want to keep that light off."
And everyone is silent. I am practically shaking at this point. He then starts circling around us as he says,
"You guys are never coming back here, right?"
He walks past me and sees the camera and raises his bat, saying,
and you're gonna put that fucking camera away.
And I just barely say, "Yeah, it's off." He looks over to my friends watching on the roof, past the gap, and he points to them and he says,
Jump.
and they stand silent. The guy says again,
Fucking jump across right now. Just run and jump. You'll make it.
Keep in mind, the gap doesn't look that bad, but the drop is fatal if you don't make the jump, and my 4 friends are all staring down at the drop, fearing what could happen. One of them says, "I don't think I can make it," and the Negan guy replies,
Run and jump, or else you will regret it.
So, my friend steps back, runs, and barely makes the jump. From there, one by one the other 3 jump across, all while the Negan guy is standing right behind us with his bat, dragging it along the concrete. Once we all got across, he says to us,
You're never coming back here again. You understand?
and we awkwardly apologize and run away back to our cars in the distance. I get in my car and look back at the area, and he's still standing there, watching us with his bat as we speed off. Realistically, we could have probably ganged up on him as a group if anything bad happened, but who knows who else was back there. Sadly, the hospital is a no-go from here on out, but I'll still be looking around for some sick locations. What scared me the most about this was how fearless and disturbed this guy looked. He'd definitely seen some shit, and had undoubtedly used that bat before on someone else. He looked like a killer. He probably was a killer, and it was his calmness that really got to me.